expecting the world without you losing them. Sarah here, aka the Business Fixer. So on Sunday, I went to a couple of car events. So those of you who know me know that I'm a bit of a petrol head, and I arrived at the first event full of enthusiasm, although I was a little bit late due to the dog deciding to have a hissy fit because he didn't want me to put his harness on. So I arrived, and unfortunately, even though the event was supposed to be going for a bit longer, half the cars had actually already left. Classic. It's that moment where you walk into a room and immediately think, brilliant, I've missed the main act. That was me, because but before I had that time to really kind of sulk and feel sorry for myself, which I don't generally do anyway, the dog, who fits, as you've seen quite often on screen, who truly believes the universe revolves around him, became the center of attention, which is, to be honest, what happens a lot of the time. And this family approached me and the dog, and it was a mum, dad, and two teenage boys. They were lovely people, warm energy, the kind that you immediately feel comfortable chatting to. Their eldest son sort of caught my attention because you could tell he was really into his cars, because he had this really professional setup in terms of his camera, and he's a videographer and photographer. They had actually travelled all the way from Norfolk for this event, because according to the dad, when your kids love cars, you just go where the cars are. And to be fair, he was clearly also a petrol head himself. And honestly, I thought, what a brilliant philosophy. We chatted, we laughed, we swapped a few stories, and the boys fussed over the dog as if the Fitz was part of the display, which is pretty normal. And despite missing most of the cars at that particular event, the conversation alone at least made that first event worthwhile. And then I went to the second event, which was only literally 10 minutes down the road. It was for charity, Little Havens Hospice, and that was different. That was where literally it was popping, where you had the loud car exhaust, the flames popping, a huge variety of different cars, from people's dailies to lots of BMW M cars. Even I think I saw an old school Fiesta, to supercars like McLaren, Ferrari, and an Audi R8. And you could feel that there was this real energy, noise, enthusiasm. And there was just enough chaos that it just was entertaining. And standing there watching the mix of cars, characters, and competitor energy, it hit me. This is exactly what running service-based businesses look like. Different levels, different expectations, different levels of investment, different levels of noise. And just like car events, business owners often forget one crucial thing. If you do not manage client expectations properly, everyone thinks they deserve supercar treatment even when they're paying Fiesta money. And that, in a nutshell, is where so many problems in client relationships begin. Not because we're either bad people or terrible clients, but the unspoken assumptions, unclear boundaries, and a lack of a leadership around what is realistic and what is not. It's quite a tricky one, and it's even something that I'm not saying that I am perfect at this. The one thing that hopefully you guys know from when I'm doing these videos is I don't pretend to know it all. I don't pretend to say that I have everything nailed and sussed. There is a lot of things that I'm still working on. And even these things, I've had moments where I've had a little bit of a mismatch in terms of communication and expectations. So, what I'm giving you is guidance as to how we ideally want to be, but it's not an easy thing. So why do we get ourselves into these situations where clients end up expecting the world? Well, most business owners will at some point will quietly ask themselves why certain clients seem to expect so much, right? What is often missed is that those expectations have usually been learned over time. Clients pay close attention to what you do, not what you wished you had said. So if you're always responding to messages straight away, they assume that's the standard. If you regularly squeeze in last minute work without raising an eyebrow, they believe you always can. If you continually throw in extras without explanation, they decide that they're included. And this is not about blaming yourself or beating yourself up or even blaming clients, far from it. It's about recognizing that you train people how to interact with your business. And when expectations are not made explicit, people fill in the blanks in a way that works in their favor. From their perspective, nothing's wrong. They're simply operating inside the pattern that they have been experiencing. And from your perspective, however, the gap between what was agreed and what is now happening starts to widen. And over time, this creates what I would call the resentment gap. On the surface, the relationship looks fine, you're still delivering, they're still paying, but underneath you start to feel drained, taken for granted, and slightly irritated before their name even appears in your inbox. And the core issue is not that they're asking for too much, it's that you've never clearly defined what enough actually looks like. So let's talk a little bit about the psychology behind rising expectations. So there is very human psychological drivers behind all of this. When people are unclear, they become anxious. When they're anxious, they become more demanding. Clients who do not know where things stand or what is happening next will naturally seek reassurance. That reassurance often comes out as an extra request, more follow-ups, and a sense of urgency that does not always match the reality. Okay? Research that's been done in terms of customer experience regularly shows that clarity and communication are two of the biggest drivers of satisfaction. So when customers or clients understand the process and feel informed, they rate the experience far more positively, even if problems occur along the way, which I think is a really interesting thing. So understanding that communication breakdowns are one of the most common reasons client relationships deteriorate, even when the actual work is technically sound, is something really to absorb here, because communicating effectively with clients is what reinforces how you communicate, right? And it's just as important as what you're actually delivering. And when the conversation is not structured, people read meaning into silence that was never intended. In plain terms, if you do not tell your clients what is happening, they will happily invent their own version, which is usually negative because they think nothing is happening. Okay, so if you're understanding this, then you can shift your focus away from what you might think of as difficult clients onto something you can actually control: how you communicate, how you set expectations. It stops being a potential personality problem and becomes a process problem. Processes can be improved. Personalities are a bit more harder. So what clients actually want, and I tell you what, it is not unlimited access to you, okay? The myth many business owners carry is that clients want more of everything: more access, more responsiveness, more flexibility, more attention. In reality, most clients do not necessarily want more, they want clearer. They want to feel confident, not clingy. They want to understand how things work so they can relax and let you get on with it. After all, they've come to you for your expertise and therefore want you to just get on with the task that's at hand. But ultimately, in practice, what clients want when it comes to clarity is around a few simple but very important things. What is exactly is included and what is not? How long things are likely to take? How and when you will communicate with them? What you need from them to keep things moving, and what happens if something changes or they want more. Now, when these points are communicated clearly, the clients will then feel informed and secure. They do not need to chase you continuously because they know that things are happening because you've informed them. They do not assume then that something is included when it's not, because you've already outlined the boundaries. They do not panic when there is a pause because they understand where you are in the process. This is where managing client expectations becomes a real performance advantage. Instead of firefighting and reacting, you're leading and guiding them. Clients feel looked after rather than managed. You feel in control rather than stretched and guilty. And the relationship moves from "I need to fix this now" to "I trust your process, keep me posted." Okay, so how do you actually start to manage these expectations better? Well, the good news is you don't need some fancy complex system software or massive dramatic changes. It starts with being more intentional in how you set up and run the relationship. And that begins at the very start, not halfway through when things have already feel a bit uncomfortable. From here, you can put simple, practical steps in place that keep expectations clear, protect your capacity, and make it much easier for clients to understand how you actually work. So, here are my 5 top areas. 1, strengthen your onboarding to set expectations early. Okay, onboarding is where expectations form long before any actual delivery starts. So a strong onboarding experience explains exactly what is included, what is not, how communication works, typical response times, and the role that the client plays in actually keeping things moving forward. It also gives you an opportunity to set those boundaries confidently and positively, rather than waiting for a problem to force the conversation later. How many times have you done that? Clients decide very quickly whether your business operates with structure or reacts on the fly. And onboarding is your first moment to set the tone for the relationship going forward. Number 2, walk clients through your process step by step. Clients behave far better when they understand the journey ahead of them. Taking the time to walk them through each stage of your process creates clarity and removes the guesswork that often triggers unnecessary pressure. Explain timelines, milestones, approvals, and where decisions are required. When clients know exactly what happens next, they stop assuming, stop chasing, and stop filling the silence with their own narrative. A transparent process gives them reassurance and gives you control. 3, clearly define the scope and reinforce it throughout the relationship. Most scope creep isn't intentional. It happens because clients don't realize they've crossed a boundary. This is why scope has to be explained in clear, simple language, not left hidden in a proposal document. This is where verbal communication, as well as reinforcing it in written, is really important. So reinforce those the key points, especially during longer projects, so the expectations stay aligned. Be explicit about what's included, what counts as additional work, and how extras are handled. When clients understand the limits, they tend to respect them instinctively. Number 4, establish predictable communication rhythms. Clients don't panic because communication is slow. They panic because communication is unpredictable. So establish rhythms for updates, define typical response times, and make it clear how and when clients will hear from you. This will remove uncertainty and will prevent the unnecessary chasing that drives us all nuts. 5, redirect instead of refusing when our clients want more. Okay, you don't have to shut clients down when they request something outside of the original scope, but redirect the conversation by acknowledging the request and presenting the appropriate options. So, for example, a simple confident line that you could use is, "This sits outside of our original agreement. Here are the options if you'd like to add this in." It's professional, calm, and clear. It protects your boundaries while maintaining trust and allowing that client to make an informed decision without feeling dismissed. Okay, so giving you lots of really helpful tips in here. Okay, so if we kind of go back to this, what I said to you about the 2-car events, right, where there's a simple reminder not everything can be treated the same. Different cars require different levels of attention. Different owners have different expectations. Some are happy with a daily driver that just gets them from A to B. Others want something rare, loud, and attention grabbing. That would be me. It's exactly the same with clients, okay? You cannot deliver supercar service on Fiesta rules. When everyone expects top tier treatment, regardless of what they're paying for, something will break. That something is usually you or your team, or the actual whole relationship collapses altogether. So managing those client expectations and setting the client boundaries is not about becoming rigid or less caring about your clients. It's about building a business that can deliver consistently, profitably, and sustainably without relying on you to constantly stretch yourself to hold it together. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're recognizing that your own expectations, boundaries, or processes could do with tightening, then this is your nudge. You do not have to keep operating like this and hoping it's going to finally calm down after the next project. That calm rarely arrives on its own. Okay, so if you want some help with this, let's have a conversation. Book yourself in for a free business performance strategy session. Let me help you take control of your clients' expectations, your boundaries, and your time. If this is something that's of interest to you, then literally just comment the word performance and we can have a chat. Now, I just have to add on to the end of this. So you'll hopefully see at the bottom of your screen, we have the 5-day business transformation challenge that is coming back, and we are starting on Monday. This is the live coaching edition. I ran it for the first time. I think it was back in July now, right? And it was a huge success. It was so much better than the previous challenges I've run. And yes, I will hold my hands up. I will say when things work and when they don't work. This is about me being transparent and authentic. And the live coaching, honestly, I love doing that. It's a big part of what I do. So if you are interested in bringing a particular challenge you've got in your service-based business right now, sign up to the 5-day business transformation challenge, and I will live coach you through with a solution you can implement into your business straight away, right? So bring those challenges, get yourself signed up. If you go onto the website, you'll see under events, there is the challenge. You can also see the web address is along your screen at the bottom. And I will hopefully see you on Monday when the challenge starts. Well, thank you guys for listening. And I will see you again next week. Have a fabulous weekend, everyone.